A man spends 40 years building the places where the rest of us go to get well. And then a computer decides he can wait. Not a doctor, a computer. Sit in how backwards that is, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'm Tom Riley, and I spent 38 years helping folks navigate Medicaid and Medicare. I'm used to the fine print nobody reads out loud. But the man at the center of this story taught me something else. Tyrone Brooks is a pipefitter out of Youngstown, Ohio. 59 years old, hands like a catcher's mitt. He ran safety meetings his whole working life. Before every shift, he'd walk the hazards to make sure every man went home with all 10 fingers. That was his job behind the job. Well, tonight, I'm running a safety meeting for him. Not about a trench or a live wire. About a rule that's already on the calendar, quietly waiting for people who did everything the right way. Stay with me, because what happened to Ty is coming for a lot of good people, and most won't see it until it's already done.
I never asked anybody for a handout. Not once in my life. You work, you pay in, you take care of your own, and the rest takes care of itself. That was the deal I was raised on. I believed in that deal right up until the day it stopped believing in me. My old man poured concrete till his knees were gone, and he never took a dime he didn't sweat for. 40 years of pipe behind me, every joint tight, every inspection signed. I figured I'd go out the same way he did, head up. Turns out the system had other plans for a man like me.
The first time I really understood Ty, we were standing in a job site trailer he hadn't worked out of in almost 2 years. He'd asked me to meet him there instead of his house, and I didn't understand why until he walked over to the toolbox bolted into the bed of his truck and pulled something out. Not a phone, not a stack of printouts. A logbook. A worn, grease-thumbed logbook. The kind a foreman keeps by hand when he doesn't trust anybody else to keep it right. Every job he'd ever run was in there. The dates, the crews, the inspections signed off, the little notes in the margin where something almost went wrong and didn't because he caught it. He set that logbook down on the workbench between us, like a man laying down evidence. And in a way, that's exactly what it was. Because what the system was about to do to Tyrone only made any sense at all if you'd never laid eyes on that logbook. If you'd never seen the plain proof, page after page, that this was a man who worked. He's got me opening it to a page near the middle, and I smooth it flat with the side of my hand, the way you'd calm something down.
You see this line right here? That's the new wing out at the Regional Medical Center, the cardiac floor where they crack chests open and bring people back. I ran the pipe in that building 25 years ago. My crew, my logbook, my signature on the inspection sheet. And now a computer is telling me that getting my back fixed in the very building I put together with my own hands can wait. Go ahead. Read that back to yourself and tell me it isn't crazy. I've still got the dust from that job somewhere down in my lungs. You don't forget a building you bled into. I could still walk you through every shutoff in that place from memory.
Here's the part I need you to hear, and I'm talking now to whoever's watching this for somebody else. The daughter looking after a stubborn father. The wife whose husband won't ask. The neighbor who notices the mail piling up. Tyrone's back gave out the way a lot of trade bodies give out. Slow for years, and then all at once. He filed for federal disability benefits, what they call the Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI program. And like a whole lot of honest people, he got told no the first time and put in the appeal, which can crawl along for a year or more while you just wait and hurt. While he was waiting, his health coverage was coming through Medicaid. Specifically, the expansion kind, which is a state health program built for working-age adults who are between things. That coverage is the only reason he can still see the specialist who's fighting to keep him off an operating table. And that is exactly what this new rule puts square in the crosshairs. So if you're watching this for someone you love, this is the spot where you lean in instead of out. This is the turn where it stops being policy and starts being a person at your kitchen table.
The appeal letter said they needed more evidence. More evidence. Like the last 2 years of letters weren't evidence enough. Like the pain doesn't count unless I bleed on the form in the right coloring. I've got a body that won't let me tie my own boots some mornings, and a folder of doctor's notes thick as a phone book, and they need more evidence. I've never in my life asked a stranger to take my word for anything. I brought the proof, and the proof still wasn't the proof they wanted from me.
When Tyrone came into our office for free Medicare and Medicaid counseling, what we call the State Health Insurance Assistance Program, or SHIP office, he set that logbook on my desk before he even sat all the way down. I see a lot of folks in that chair, and most of them come in scared. He didn't come in scared. He came in insulted, which is a different thing, and honestly, a harder thing to walk somebody back from. I had to be the one to tell him that starting the 1st of January, 2027, his state is going to make him prove he's working in order to hold on to that Medicaid coverage. He looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. I see that look a lot lately, and every single time I have to fight the urge to apologize for a system I didn't build. Because the people who land in that chair aren't the ones gaming anything. They're the ones who never learned how to ask for help, because asking was never part of who they were. And the rule doesn't make room for that kind of pride. It reads silence as proof you don't qualify, when usually it's proof you were raised not to beg.
And here's the number that does the damage, so listen close, because the whole trap hangs on it. To keep his coverage under the new rule, Ty has to show 80 hours of work a month, or $580. That's the line. And every 6 months, he has to turn around and prove the whole thing all over again. Now hold that up against a man whose spine won't let him stand through a full shift anymore. The same hands that ran the pipe through the cardiac wing can't give anybody 80 hours a month, not now. The rule doesn't see the logbook. It can't. It wasn't built to. It only sees an empty box where the hours are supposed to be, and an empty box to a system like that means you're not trying. That's the cruelty hiding inside something that looks so reasonable on paper.
I sat with Tyrone and did the arithmetic out loud, because numbers on a letter don't land until somebody says them to your face. 80 hours a month, I told him, or about $580 in earnings, whichever you can put down on paper and prove. Then I asked him the only question that actually mattered. Can your back give you that, week in and week out, without landing you in a hospital bed? He looked down at the floor. That was the answer. Right there. And we both heard it. And that's the moment the exemption stops being some technicality and starts being the plain truth. The hours weren't there because the body wasn't there. My whole job from that point on was to make the file say exactly that. In language the system can't pretend it didn't read.
80 hours. They want 80 hours a month out of a body that already gave them 40 years of them. I sat in that little office, and I felt my face go hot. Like I was a kid who'd been caught stealing. Me. I built that hospital. And I'm sitting there feeling like a criminal, because my back finally quit on me. I kept waiting for somebody behind that desk to laugh and say it was all a mistake. Nobody laughed. 40 years I stood at the front of a room and told other men to respect the danger they couldn't see. And here, the danger I couldn't see was a line on a form. That's the second it got real for me.
That's the moment I want to leave you sitting in for a second, because that's the moment the whole thing tips one way or the other. Tyrone had a way out right then that he didn't even know existed. One folder, one process, something that could have ended the fear right there in that office. That same afternoon, the counselor across the desk knew it. I knew it. Ty didn't, not yet, and nobody whose job it was to call him was ever going to pick up the phone. But before I show you what that way out was, I want you to do one thing for me. Picture the person in your own life who'd rather sit in pain than ask a soul for help. You got their face in your mind? Good. Hold on to it. Because the next part is the part I wish to God somebody had walked them through ahead of time. So let me ask you straight, the way I'd ask my own crew. If it were you in that chair, with that logbook on the desk, what would you have done next? The door that saves most people was closed to him. There's a thing called a medical frailty exemption. In plain talk, the rule itself admits some people should never have been measured by that 80-hour box at all, because their health makes the test beside the point. That was Ty. It was always Ty. It was sitting there in the rule the entire time, like a fire exit nobody bothered to point him to. And I'll be honest with you, the way I'd want it said to me, there were other doors people kept telling him to run at. Rush the disability appeal, move to a different state, pick up some part-time hours, as if there's anything easy about that when your spine's the problem. Dead ends, all of them. There was one door that actually opened, and it took a counselor who knew the building to find the handle.
Nobody told me that exit was there. 2 years of letters, and not one of them said, "Hey, there's a way out that fits your situation." Every envelope with that little window on the front, and every one of them telling me what I owed or what I was missing. Not one pointing at the door that could have saved me. They will tell you what you're short. They will never once tell you about the way out. You find that on your own, or somebody who knows where the bodies are buried decides to help you.
So picture his kitchen a few weeks on. Tyrone's at the table where he's eaten supper for 30 years, and there are two things sitting on it. The denial letter, with that flat printed language that never once uses your name, and right next to it, that logbook. He'd put them side by side on purpose, he told me later. The letter that said his work didn't count, and the book that proved his work was the only thing he'd ever really had. This is the anchor I think about most, because this is where the fight actually got decided. Not in some office downtown, but at a kitchen table with a pen. And here's the gut punch underneath all of it. The plan he was up against leans on an automated review, software that flags who keeps coverage and who doesn't. And that software had already looked at a surgeon's note saying this man needs care and decided, in effect, that he can wait. A program. Overruling a surgeon. That's the part that should make the hair on your arms stand up.
What I told Tyrone at that table was simple, even if the paperwork isn't. The exemption doesn't care how hard you worked. It cares whether a medical professional will put it in writing that your body can't meet the requirement. Not the kind of proof Ty was used to, the kind you sign at the bottom of an inspection, the kind a doctor writes. So we don't argue about how unfair it is. We build a file. Every diagnosis, every specialist visit, every imaging report gathered into one place and dated, so that when the system goes looking for a reason to say no, the reason to say yes is already sitting on top. Impossible to miss. I've watched that quiet, organized folder beat an algorithm more times than I can count. People think you fight these things with anger. You don't. You fight them with a file so complete that the easiest thing left for the system to do is finally say yes.
So that's what I did. I treated it like a job. I took that logbook and I started a new kind of entry in the back of it, only this time the dates weren't pours and inspections. They were doctors and denials. Appointment by appointment, note by note. If they wanted evidence, fine. I'd keep the record the way I always kept the record. Right and complete and signed. Same as I'd have wanted any man on my crew to keep it.
And I want to stop here for the caregivers again, because you're the ones who can actually do something with this tonight. Ty was lucky in exactly one way, and it wasn't his health, and it wasn't his luck. It was that he finally walked into a room with somebody who knew the rule better than the rule wanted to be known. Most people never make it into that room. They get the letter, they feel the shame Ty felt, and they go quiet. And quiet is exactly what the system is counting on. If you love somebody who's the type to go quiet, you might be the only fire exit they ever get pointed to. That's not a guilt trip. That's just the math of how these things actually go. The people who keep their coverage are almost never the people who fought hardest. They're the people who happen to have somebody in their corner who knew where to push.
My boy kept asking me why I was so calm all of a sudden. I told him I wasn't calm. I just finally had something to do with my hands again besides worry. That's all a man like me ever needs. A task and a way to keep score. Give me a job and a clean line to walk, and I'll outwork the fear every single time. It was the waiting that nearly took me down. Not the work, never the work.
The last anchor is out in the garage, and it's the one I'd want you to remember if you forget everything else. Once the file was built and the exemption was filed, Ty asked his son to come out to the garage. That's where the workbench lives, the vise, the coffee cans full of fittings sorted by size. And Tyrone took that logbook, the same one from the trailer, the same one from the kitchen table, and he handed it across to his boy. His son's a working man too, same trade, same body, coming for him eventually. And that logbook is going to mean something completely different to him now than it did a year ago. It stopped being a record of jobs. It became a set of instructions for how to not get erased.
I told him, son, the building's going to outlast me, and that's fine. That's the point of building. But this logbook, you keep this. Don't let it end up in a box in the attic. Because the day somebody tells you that you don't count, the day a form or a screen says you can wait, this is how you prove you always did. This is the part of me they can't erase.
The exemption came through. I want to tell you that plainly, because you've earned the ending. Tyrone kept his coverage, kept his specialist, stayed off that operating table for now. But I promised you a safety meeting, and a safety meeting tells the whole truth, not just the good half. The exemption didn't give him his back. It didn't undo the 2 years of fear or the nights he lay awake doing the math. And it has to be renewed, which means the worry never fully leaves. It just gets quieter. The win was real. The win also had a price, and pretending otherwise would be the kind of lie this man never told in 40 years of signing his name to things.
People ask me if I'm angry. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just careful now, in a way I shouldn't have to be. I beat it this time, but I keep thinking about all the guys on my old crews who'll get that same letter and won't have anybody to tell them which door to try. Good men. Men who built this town with their hands. They'll read that envelope and they'll go quiet, same as I almost did. That's the part that keeps me up at night now. Not my own fight. Theirs.
This is the last item on the meeting, so don't drift on me now. This story shows how one honest folder of paperwork helped Tyrone Brooks get out from under a rule, built to wear him down, and keep the coverage he spent a lifetime earning. Think about what that logbook actually taught us, watching Ty go end to end with it. The system doesn't reward the work itself. It rewards the proof of the work, filed the exact way it wants to see it. A man can build half the hospitals in his county and still get wiped out by an empty box on a form, while a quiet, well-kept folder can stand up to a machine and win. The exit was there for Ty the whole time, and nobody was ever going to call and offer it. And that is both the cruelty of this thing and the way through it. So here's what you do, and I want you to do it with the same care Ty put into that logbook. Before anything else, you call your state Medicaid office or a SHIP counselor, and you ask out loud whether a medical frailty exemption fits your situation, and you do that this month, not after some letter has already scared you half to death. From there, you start your own logbook, the way Ty did. Every diagnosis and visit and denial dated and kept in one place, so the answer is ready before the question comes. And when you sit down with that counselor, you bring the proof that your body can't hold 80 hours a month, because that number is the whole game, and a doctor's word in your file is the thing that answers it. Then you recheck the whole file every 6 months, the same way you'd rewalk a site before a fresh crew ever sets foot on it. This is the story of one ordinary person who figured out their situation. This is not personal advice and not a guarantee. Medicaid and Medicare rules are complex and depend on your income, assets, household, health, your state, and possible changes in law. What worked here will not work for everyone. Always check with your state Medicaid office or a SHIP counselor before making any decisions. Don't risk your family's future relying solely on someone else's experience. If you've spent your life working hard and taking care of other people, and nobody ever walked you through this, drop "I'm in the comments. I read them, and I try to answer as many as I can. They built the places that heal the rest of us, and they played by every rule for 40 years. So why does a system get to decide, by software, that a man like that can simply wait? Where do you land on that?